This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agunar Shabbos Rabbi. We're holding in the fourth parak of Pirkei Avos, and we hope to learn B'ezras Hashem Mishnah Yud Beis. Rabbi Meir Omer, have a mamayit be'esak v'asoik b'Torah. Limit your work and involve yourself in Torah. V'hava shfal ruach b'fnei chol adam, and be of lowly spirit before every person. V'imbatalta min haTorah.
By that I mean modest, or shfal ruach is modest.
Yeah, modest, humble. V'imbatalta min haTorah, and if you are batal from Torah, if you negate yourself from the Torah, if you allow yourself to be distracted from the Torah, yesh lecha b'telim harbe kenegdecha, you will have many obstacles opposite you. V'yamamalta b'Torah, and if you involve yourself in Torah, yesh loy sachar harbe liten lach, he has a lot of reward to give you. So Meir basically tells us four statements. Number one, don't work so much and learn Torah. Number two, be humble before everyone. Number three, if you are distracted from the Torah, you will have many distractions. And number four, if you learn Torah, Hashem has a lot of reward to give you. Now, if we were playing the game, one of these things does not belong here, you would immediately know it's the second thing, v'hava shfal ruach b'fnei kol adam. I mean, the whole mission is talking about learning Torah. He says, don't work too much and learn. Number two, if you distract yourself, you'll have a lot of distractions. And then if you learn, Hashem has a lot of reward. Where does shfal ruach come in?
If you're too haughty, you can't learn.
Right. If you don't have that quality, you won't be able to
and why is it number two here? Like either in the beginning, in the end. Okay, maybe we'll have to talk about it on another occasion. Remind me to tell you a certain observation I have. I don't have any evidence from any sefer that this is true. I'm just an objective observer. But let us see, the Chavetz Chaim wrote a sefer called Shem Olam. And in the sefer Shem Olam, Chavetz Chaim writes in Pirkei about the importance of Limud HaTorah on Shabbos. Chavetz Chaim Agavorcha says Pshat in the Mishnah, we're going to focus on the line, V'im batalta min haTorah, if you are distracted by the Torah, yesh lecha, if you allow yourself to be distracted, yesh lecha b'telim harbe kenegdecha, you will have many distractions. Says the Chafetz Chaim, Amru chachamenu zechroinam levracha. Our sages tell us, Shahatorah shoala laHashem yizbarach, the Torah asks Hashem, that Hashem, it was a great 40 years in the desert. It was just me and Knesset Yisrael. But what's going to be when the Jews enter the Holy Land? And v'yatsa kalachad ish l'sadeh v'ish l'charmoi. What's going to be with me? Kishe Yisrael yikansu l'ara zeratz l'zeis v'zeratz l'karmoi ani matei alai heishav la Shabbos yia ben zugech. Don't worry, there's always Shabbos. And ke'ein zeh, similar to this, we find in the Yerushalmi, loy nitnu Shabbosos v'yamim tovim liYisrael Ela kedei lasoik bahem b'Torah. Shabbos and Yom Tov was given not to eat more, not to have more time with your family, not to sleep more, but to learn more. You hear this chidushim? People think, what's Shabbos? Shabbos is more eating. Wrong answer. Shabbos is more time for my family. That's why you live in America. You have Sunday. Baruch Hashem, that's one of the advantages of America. Shabbos is more sleep. Also, wrong answer. The answer is loy nitno. The only reason it was given is kedei lasik b'hem haTorah. V'ho inyanhu mibnei shekol yomos hachol, the whole weekday, heim trudim b'malachtam u'mascharam. People are occupied. Ve'en lahem pnai lasik ba b'kfios. People cannot learn steadily. U'v'Shabbos heim pnuyim imalacha. Shabbos people are off. And they need to be involved in it properly. And that is why Chazal tells us in the Gemara, there are three causes that Balabatim sort of have a downgrade in their finances, and one of them is they don't come to the shir on Shabbos. The kavi sudasa b'shabbata b'idan be'midrasha. They're sitting at the table and they they're sitting and they're eating, they're overeating, they're indulging at the time of the Kviyas Beis Medrash, which the minhag in Klal Yisrael is after the meal, after the nap, they were Kovea Beis HaMedrash. And those who are Kovea Suda at that time, that's one of the reasons why people end up losing their money. Now, part of this is not only people getting together to eat at the time of the shir. It means some people have very long meals, and the longer the meal, the more tired you are, the longer the nap, and basically you lose that on the learning. Elo yaktim oisa yachar oisa. You want to eat es gesund to hate, just make sure you do it at a different time. Says the Chavetz Chaim, V'zeo teichachas megula la'oisa na'anoshim shemetaylam v'esei b'shvangim r'chavos. This is basically open rebuke to those people who are milling around the streets, talking, during the time of the Kviyas Beis Medrash. Because even Suda Shabbos, which is a mitzvah, is asur at that time because of Bittul Torah. Certainly to be involved milling around. Okay, so what are we getting at here? Besides some good musar. Well, the Chavetz Chaim continues. The Hine HaKosav Omer, B'chol Derachecha Da'ehu, know God in all of His ways. V'hu yiyashar orcheisecha, He will straighten your paths. V'hakavana, Sheb'chol puloisav sha'oisa ba'asaka, all of one's actions in his work, uvenyanav, yechavin sharoitz l'histaker k'dei she'yih aloi b'amel lichyois v'yuchalav et Hashem yisparach b'lim et atar b'kim ha'mitzvos. In other words, if a person were to say, what is the main part of my life? When I'm working, or when I have free time? The answer is, your main life is when you have free time. Because when you work, you're really working to be able to learn the Yishuv Hadas. You know, and a person can ask themselves the same question. What are my main years? The 50 years that I worked, the 40 years that I worked, or my retirement? No, this is life. You worked to be able to sit and learn with a clean head.
100%.
Right?
That's why you retire.
Right, I'm not there yet, but right? I'm still working. But the real life is when you're able to come and learn. But if a person was mechavein, and by the way, I'm going to teach you a chiddush now that's not mentioned here. If a person has kavana that when they go to work, I'm working so that I could have parnasa, so that Shabbos I could learn, and Sunday I could learn, and Monday, Memorial Day I could learn, and in Mirza Hashem when I retire I could learn, then all the work is nachshav k'mitzvah. So you ask, but what if I forgot to think that? So I'm going to tell you a very important chiddush I heard from Victor Miller. You could have retroactive kavana. Retroactive kavana. Where do we learn that from? Shikha. Shikha is a mitzvah that you can't do it at the time, because you don't even realize you forgot it. But then when you wake up and say, hey, I forgot something, then you have in mind, you know what? Baruch Hashem, I forgot it. Should be for a mitzvah. It's called retroactive kavanah. In other words, when you drop the stalk, when you drop the bundle, you're not even aware you dropped it. If you're aware, it wouldn't be shikha. In other words, if you see it fall, it's only when you forgot it. So the mitzvah of shikha teaches you can have retroactive kavanah. So he would say that when you say in Birchas Hamazon, and you thank Hashem, B'al brischa shechasamta b'vsarenu, you thank Hashem for bris milah. Hey, wait a second. When you had the bris milah, you were kicking and screaming. You were screaming so loud, the moil had to plug your mouth with that pacifier, and then he put alcohol down your throat, and right? You didn't want to have it. Don't tell me you wanted to have the milah. You didn't want to have it. But afterwards, after the pain is gone, and you say V'al brischa shechasamta b'sreinu, you have retroactive kavana. Hashem, I'm very happy to have the bris milah. So too.
Why is shikha considered a mitzvah? Why is the action of shikha considered?
Basically, the mitzvah is to let it be. Let it be. You forgot it.
Don't go back and get it.
Don't go back.
Don't be a chazer and go back.
Don't go back for it. You dropped it. Don't go back for it. Right. That. Okay.
So you're saying the mitzvah is more than not going back.
That's right.
Than the having dropped it. True, but the way Rav Miller would view it is that you're being rewarded for your retroactive kavanah. So
the show really wanted the mitzvah. The goof is kicking.
Right. So Memela says the Chavetz Chaim, the meaning of the pasuk B'chol derachecha da'ehu v'hu yiyashar orchosecha is if a person is mechavein in all of the work that he does, that it should enable a person to do mitzvahs, he will be rewarded even for his work. But there's one condition. Yeah, you work for 40 years, 50 years. Are you learning on Shabbos? Are you learning on a legal holiday? Are you learning when you retire? So if you are, so then Baruch Hashem says, Taka, this guy, he was mechavein, that all of his work was in order to be able to learn. So then Baruch Hashem says, you know what? Your kavanah was genuine and honest. But what about a guy, the whole week he say, yeah, I'm going to work to be able to learn. Come Shabbos. Or shlifta abegel, they say. He's sleeping 12 hours Friday night and 4.5 hours Shabbos day. And he catches the last 30 seconds of the rabbi's shir, and then as soon as Pirkei Avos starts, he has to go to the early Marav. So he learns a total of 45 seconds the whole Shabbos. Mamash tzaddik gomor. So how could this guy have legitimately say that he's working in order to learn? And then Sunday comes, he's off the whole day, so he davens 9 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock already, the wife is calling, so he can't learn. And then the whole day goes on. Till 11 o'clock, he's getting the meat for the barbecue, and then 1 o'clock, Shoin NFL. 2 games, 1 to 4, 4 to 7, and then you need hachanois for Sunday night. So the whole day goes by, and then Monday night already. So what's going to be? And then the finals and the Stanley Cup, it's non-stop. The whole day is 72 hours go by, not mamish, one verter. This guy is working in order to learn. But that's only if time remains to learn. Shabbos, or Shabbos comes, he's not working, then he takes advantage. He runs to learn. He makes sure Friday night, maybe a little bit at the Suda, a little bit before he goes to sleep, maybe he gets up a little bit Shabbos day, he makes sure, he has a nice meal, but Ad kan Techum Shabbos, how much could you talk at the meal for? I mean, how many desserts can you eat? You take a nice nap, you wake up, and you make sure to learn. But loiches, so then his working is to learn. But if during his leisure time he depletes it with nonsense, then it comes out, listen to this, not only is he mevato from Torah, in other words, Shabbos is a critical day in a person's life. Because if when Shabbos comes, the person doesn't utilize it, the Yibam Shalom says, not only you're mevato Torah on Shabbos, I'm going to consider it bittul Torah all 6 days of the week. Because you don't tell me that if you would have had time, you'd have been learning. I see what you would have been doing. If Shabbos is peanuts, pistachio nuts, chocolate-covered nuts, chocolate-covered this, chocolate-covered this, then Hashem's going to say, I'm giving you 7 days of chocolate-covered peanuts and not one word of learning. Don't you tell me that all your work is to be able to do Avos Hashem.
What would you say if he tells you this fellow who takes this very long nap on Shabbos and doesn't have...
I'm all for naps, I like it, yeah. What?
And he says, listen, Hashem put me in a situation where I work 12 hours a day to be able to support the family and pay these yeshiva tuitions. I'm so zot, I can't sleep during the week because I got so much on my mind. Shabbos is the only time I have time for to have a little menucha. Is that am I doing something that's a problem? Hashem put me in the matzav that I work so hard.
He works so hard, so you know what? He could tell his wife, you know what, when I come home, we're going to do Shalom Aleichem, Eishes Chai right away. We're going to sing 2 Zmiros. I'm going to say the Dvar Torah. The meal we'll give an hour and a half. I'll learn 20 minutes Friday night. And I'll make sure I don't need to go to the Kiddush and Shul. I'll come home right away. I'll have my Suda, have a nice nap. But there's always time. So but here's the Chiddush. The Chiddush is that if a person doesn't use their leisure time, then they're going to be held accountable not only for the leisure time, but even for the work time. Because work is a wonderful thing if it's for the right purpose. And the Ribbon Shalom will see from how a person uses their leisure time, how they're going to... how Hashem's going to consider the time he worked. Who mafsid kol puloisav shakol yomos hashavua. He loses out on the whole week.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What about the person about going with chesed? It's not about learning. It's time you do a lot of tzedakah. When you work, you want to have money for tzedakah. Chesed. It's not everyone to learn it. Some people are doers. They do chesed.
Chesed is.
Chesed
is wonderful. Tzedakah is wonderful. It's very good. is not as important as
Of
learning.
course not. But you see, how is
Everybody could learn.
how
So
is
open
it
up a
work out?
chumash.
I said, no,
Oh, you mean he's only working, so then all his free time?
He has to work to support the family, but the extra way, you have to be allowed to do it, you have to be supported. If you have-
Everybody has to give tzedakah k'fi yachaltai, but also everybody has to be kovei itim k'fi yachaltai. Person, even if somebody is not able to learn Ktsois HaChosh and Shev Shmaitza, you can open up a chumash, you can open up a navi, you can open up a mishnah, you can open up Pirkei Avos. There are many things that anybody could learn, especially nowadays. Okay, so Chavetz Chaim gives a mashal. Look at the mashal. He says, it's like someone who built a big courtyard. And he spent, he spent 20,000 ruble. And there were 20 rooms. And he would make from this 3,000 silver ruble a year. After he completed the building, like many wealthy people, he actually became insane. As Rabbi Miller used to say, that he remembered as a kid that there was a meeting of the owner of the railroad company and the steel company, and the four of the greatest industry owners in the United States of America were at a certain meeting. Within a year, two of them committed suicide. One of them went insane, and the other one, his wife divorced him and he lost all his money. He remembers as a kid. But anyway, that's not here or there. Anyway, what? Arba nichnasu l'paris, v'lo yatzu l'shalom, right? Anyway, so this guy went meshuggah. And he did not, right, inexplicably, he didn't let anyone come rent out his hotel. Somebody comes and meets him and he tells him, "Hoy sachi, you fool! You spent 20,000 ruble kesef to make the hotel. You could be making 3,000 a year. In 7 years, you're going to cover your costs. But now that you locked up the hotel, you're meshugano. What are you doing? You're losing out all your investment." Says the Chavetz Chaim, this is what we do. This is us. We're the same meshugana. How are we the same? If when a person is off, Shabbos, who rats the limanat Torah, a person takes advantage to learn. Then taka, the investment of working made sense. In other words, you basically withered away 6 days. You wasted 6 days because those 6 days are not going to do anything for the rest of your existence. But it was kedai to be able to have a Shabbos. And Hashem could say, you know what, not only am I going to reward you for Shabbos, I could reward you for the 6 days. But if a person on Shabbos involves himself in nonsense, then obviously you were not working in order to do Avodas Hashem. All your work was basically for nothing. If on Shabbos, Friday night is New York Times, New York Post, Newsweek, Daily News, New York Herald, and then Mailam B'Kodesh, Yated HaModia, Mishpacha, Ami, Zman, which is either way, Ben Kach u Ben Kach, you're not getting schar, right? Or whatever other matter, Jewish Action, Jewish this, Jewish Observer, Olav Hashem, whatever it is. What?
How about if you read the Torah articles? You know, a lot of Torah.
Yeah, people are harving over the Torah and the... But if that's what you worked for, the Rebbe Shalom says, so your whole week is the magazine. Basically, says the Chavetz Chaim, I saw this pshat in the Sefer Toldos Yehoshua. Who wrote the Sefer Toldos Yehoshua? I believe it's on Pirkei Avos, Rabbi Shua Heller. Now I looked there, I couldn't find it there. He explains like this: Im batalta min ha-Torah. If you are batal from Torah on Shabbos, on Sunday, on Memorial Day, on leisure time, yesh lecha batelim harbe kenegdecha. Hashem will reckon it that you battled a lot. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it was all bittul Torah. So what do you mean? I had to work, I had to support my family. No. Says Rebbe Shalom, you're allowed to work as long as you're doing it for the right reasons. If the reason you're working is to be able to have time to read more nonsense, then it's all bittul Torah. It's all the same. So basically, if you're mavato from Torah when you're able to learn, then Rebbe Shalom says, I'm going to reckon the whole lifetime as bittul Torah. If a person in his leisure time uses it properly, in his retirement years, in his Shabbosim, in his Sundays, in his Mondays, in his Fridays, then the Rebbe Shalom says, I see that, you know what, you worked for a legitimate reason. And then, everything is reckoned as Torah, not only when you're learning, but even when you're not learning. So basically, says the Chavetz Chaim, he maps out what your Shabbos should look like. So don't be afraid. But what can we do? We have to see what he tells us. Hayosim idvarenu. Tzarech ha'adam lehischazik b'chol koichai. A person needs to strengthen himself with all his strength. Shelo yelech etzlo yom haShabbos l'nyanei rik. Not to let Shabbos go by empty. Ela, but what should Shabbos look like? Chutz misuda Shabbos, besides your meals. V'sheina, and your sleep. L'fi mashu tzarech levriyusay, what's needed for your health. Chavetz Chaim is not saying you should sleep less. No, shluf gesint. So you can have a good sleep Friday night, have a good nap.
Alles mit der Shir.
Yeah, but you should try your best. You're allowed to b'tar v'avoda. You should try to use whatever time you're able for learning and avoda. Va'oz al yidei zeh gam sheishes yimei hachol yu chashum etzloi avodas Hashem yisbarach. Then everything you did the whole week will be reckoned as avodas Hashem. And by the way, this is paskin in our Chaim that poyalim ubalabatim, workers and balabatim she'ena moiskem aTorah moisachol, who don't learn Torah during the week, aleim achiv yosel azu Torah, have a greater chiv on Shabbos. So all of you kola young light over here, go tell your friends who are workers, who are balabatim, that they need to be learning more on Shabbos. Obviously, we over here, we learn during the week, it's not the same. But even us, we should try to take advantage. We have less responsibilities. Okay, so this is a cloud that the Chavetz Chaim says from the Todas Yeshua and the meaning of the Mishnah, that in Batalta min HaTorah, if on a Shabbos, if on a Sunday, if during leisure time a person withers away the time, it's a very frightening thing. Yesh lecha b'telem harbe k'negdecha. You have many other times that you're going to be held responsible for. Okay. Based on this, I came across Sefer Shailas Utshuvas Tseil HaKesef, written by Rabbi Avram Gatinov, or in English, Rabbi Avram Gatinov, or Gatinio. His father's name was Binshti.
Italian.
The Italian. Ben.
Well, he lived in Greece in the 18th century, but wherever he lived and whatever nationality he was, he invokes the same Yesoid to explain two difficult psukim in Tanakh. One pasuk is like this: Ulecha Hashem Chased. To you, God is kindness. Ki ata teshalim leish k'maaseyu. You pay back a man according to his actions. And the question is, why is the concept of reward a chesed of Hashem? Doesn't Hashem? He told us He's going to pay us back. Doesn't every boss have to pay every worker? We're all avdei Hashem. So l'chara Hashem should have to pay us like any boss pays any worker. Why is it called a chesed? So you'll say, okay, a boss has to pay a worker, that's because the worker is not obligated to work for the boss. But Hashem already paid us back before we started working for Him. He gave us the arm. So when we wear tefillin, we're paying Him back. Now He should pay us. It's just the opposite. We start off in the red. I should be rewarded for the mezuzah. Hashem gave me the house. I'm putting the mezuzah to pay Hashem back. But that's a big question that the Achronim deal with. Why is it a chesed that Hashem gives us reward? Also, there's a pasuk in Mishlei. It's actually the last words of the Ramah in Archaim. Kol yemei ani ra'im. All the days of the poor man are bad. V'toiv leiv, and the good-hearted person, mishtet tamid, is always besimcha. Well, says Rabbi Avram bin Venesti, or bin Binishti, or however you pronounce his name, he says like this: V'zeh nira kavanas hatana ba'avos im batalta min ha'torah yesh lecha b'telem harbe k'negdecha v'im amalta b'torah yesh le'schar harbe niten lach ad kan v'hu dim bito min ha'torah shu bari. If a person didn't learn when they were healthy, then im chala achar kach machmas ha'oines hu d'lo yasuk b'torah. If, let's say, afterwards a person is sick and they're not learning because they're sick, Dami l'masha kasav le'el b'shem ha'yushalmi de'im barach ha'eved v'achar kach chala chayiv lahashem af yemei choyli. like this. Let's say an Eved runs away from his master for a week. But then after the second day he ran away, he got sick. So out of the week, he's 6 days ill. So comes the owner, he catches him, he says, you owe me 7 days of work. He says, no, I was sick for 6 days. I don't owe you. I couldn't have worked anyway. He said, you ran away. Once you run away, you had no intention of learning. I don't care that you were sick. That's a halacha l'maisa. You got to pay up. But he has an excuse. If he would have been by the master, he wouldn't have owed anything. Yeah, but you ran away. Same thing with learning. If a person doesn't learn when they're able to, then even when they're not able to, it's bittul Torah. It's a frightening thing. You have a guy, he's lying in the hospital bed. He can't learn. Bittul Torah. Frightening thing. Because he didn't take advantage when he could. He says, you got to pay back even from the sick. This is what the Torah says, the Tana says. If a person doesn't learn when they're able to learn, there's going to be a lot of batala on the cheshbon. But if a person learns when they can, they're going to have a lot of reward. Not only going to be rewarded when they can, they'll then be rewarded when they didn't learn when they couldn't. Because they would have. You'll be rewarded even more than you learned. So it says, so this is even more than the Toldos Yeshua. This is saying that if a person doesn't learn, there's going to be a lot of cheshbon to deal with. And if a person does learn, there's a lot of reward, even when a person could not. Well, comes the Seil HaKesef, and he says, with this we could explain the pasuk, L'cha Hashem chasad, ki ata tasham le'ishka ma'aseyu. We could ask, what's kim ma'aseyu, the kaf hadimyain, right? Hashem points it like their actions. It should say ma'aseyu, their actions. Right? There's a big kaf. A kaf makes a big difference. Right? Kaf means like. There was a guy, his wife's name was Reizi. There's a big difference between Reizi and Kiraizi. Right? So the kaf hadimyon makes a big difference. Lama ba. Why yata tasham ish kima asehu. Right? Kima asehu. Va'od kasha. V'chi chesed. Who's chara mitzvahs? Is reward for mitzvahs. Chesed. But the pasuk says, Kol kipayal adam yishalom la. Hashem will reward a person. But according to what we just said, ki al pi ha amor, based on what we just said, Yavay Anach is very correct. The pasuk is saying, "The lafi shehu ish," and ish is a tzaddik, like Chazal say, "Kol manoshim." Not only will Hashem pay a person for their actions, Hashem will pay a person. Hashem leish, when a person says, "Kima say you like your actions." Then a person learns when they're able to. Then Hashem will reward a person. Kima, so even when they're not able to, and that's taka chesed. Hashem's not required to do that. Hashem's obligated, maybe, to repay a person for what they do, but not for what they don't do when they couldn't do it. But basically, when a person can't work, at most you get disability. Hashem says, "I give more than disability. I give exactly what you did." He says, after me ha'inish shalayas b'torah v'mitzvahs kim aser shahaya oisa ba'odei bar v'zeu mitzad ha'chesed de min adin yachal lifter atzim v'tanis kimli kisvaras maram. Otherwise, Ram Shem could say, I hold like the maram. In other words, when you couldn't do it, I don't owe you the money. And then he says like this. Look in the last paragraph. Uvazeh yesh loimar gamkein kavanas ha'kasam. And therefore, we could say pshan the pasuk. Kol yemei ani roem v'toiv leiv mishtatamid. What's an ani? Who's a real ani? A real ani is someone who has no Torah. Someone who's an ani and doesn't learn Torah when he can. Kol yemei ani roem. All his days are bad. Sai when he didn't learn when he couldn't learn, and even Sai when he didn't learn when he could have learned, and even when he doesn't learn when he can learn. It's also going to be bad for him. Kol yom avram afilu hayom shalayazu b'torah machas ha'onish shekulei onis rasoi hayolay lasik b'torah ein lo ischar kal the dami lebarach. It's like someone who ran away v'achachala. But v'toiv leiv, what's a toiv leiv? Toiv leiv ein toiv el Torah. Someone who learns when they can, Mishtet Tamid, he's going to be rewarded not only for when he learns, when he does learn, but even when he is an Eines and he can't learn. Rabbi Sai, I want to share with you, the one thing this year is missing is a chidah. So I want to tell you an amazing interpretation of the chidah in Tehillim, Parak Ayin Hey, Pasuk Gimel. Ki ekach moyed, ani meisharim eshbait. Says in Tehillim, Ki ekach moyed, ani meisharim eshbait. Says the Chidah in his commentary to Tehillim, Yosef Tehillos, says the Chidah, Perosh, Harav, Marena Rav Yaakov ben Naim, Zal. Hine avoin bittul Torah chamar ma'id. We all know bittul Torah is a big accusation. V'yoymer Adam, but a person could say, look, I had to get a high school degree, I had to get a college degree, I had to go to work, as for my family for 40 years. No problem. You had to. Kedei lasses kilkol. The tolabei tafli. Look, I have kids. V'habayis simale. I have expenses. U'v'kiyoytzi v'tainas koizviyos and all other false tainas. Ach, b'yomtiv u'v'chal hamoyed. The asur b'malacha. What about yomtiv? What about chal hamoyed? You're not out of work. V'hu moitzi hayam b'shipi. How are you spending your yomtiv? Ha! Baruch Hashem, in America we have 2 days Yom Tov. In Israel they only have 5 magazines. They only need 1 day of Yom Tov. But in America, Baruch Hashem, with the proliferation of magazines, we have 3-day Yom Tovim. Otherwise, how could you possibly read all of them? Right? So it says the Pasuk, V'zeh shekazav derech tzachos, Ki ekach moyed, she'enam oiskim b'Torah. Ani hayomim.
No, go down.
Ani meisharim eshbait al kol hayomim. I'll take ki ekach moyed. I'm going to take the Yom Tovim. I'm going to take the Chalamoyeds. I'm going to take the Shabbosos. I'm going to take the off days. Says we bunch ki ekach moyed. When I take the Yom Tiv, ani meisharim eshbait. That's when I know how to deal with you fairly.
That's the standard.
Right? That's the standard. In other words, the barometer of a person's life is their leisure time. Okay, and therefore, we have a very important thing. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter teaches us a critical thing, and that is, in Judaism it's not all or nothing, but a person is held more accountable for doing an Aveira when it was easy not to do the Aveira than for doing the Aveira when it was hard not to do the Aveira, right? In other words, let's say a person is not feeling well. And on another day, a person is feeling great. When are they more accountable to use their time wisely? When they're feeling well. In other words, a person is more accountable when it was easy than when it was hard. And therefore, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says like this. Look at number 8. Kasav Rabbeinu Yisrael Salanter. Shekol mitzvah ayaver sheyoser kalakaiman. The easier it is to do a mitzvah or not to violate an avera, are more severe. A minute of bittul Torah when you have nothing better to do is more chamor. When a person was busy. So therefore there's a Sefer Binyan Olam. Binyan Olam talks about the importance of diligence and learning. He said, when is it the easiest to learn? When you're actually sitting there in front of the Sefer, right? The easiest time you have to learn is when you're sitting there in front of the Sefer. And therefore, the time that a person will be held accountable for not learning, once a person is home already, the easiest time to learn is when you're sitting in front of the Sefer. Is there any easier time to learn than when you're sitting in front of the Sefer and learning? You already cleared out the schedule to be able to learn. And if while he's learning, he's not learning, so then, right? or a person's preoccupied in his mind, then he's not learning at the easiest time. And that's the time that a person will be held most accountable for. So therefore a person has to not only make sure that they use their time properly, but especially the times that they've already dedicated for learning. They come into a shir on a Shabbos, and somebody calls them, psst, psst. No. The answer is no, not getting up. Once you're already sitting down to learn, you have to make sure to use that time as best as possible. Okay, so this is a pshat in the Mishnah. In Batalta min HaTorah, if a person distracts himself from Torah when he's able to learn, yesh lecha b'telim harbe kenegdecha. You'll be held accountable even when you're not able to. But if a person learns when they're able to, then a person will be rewarded even for times that they were not able to. Let's offer one more pshat. And this is based on the Yushalmi. The Yushalmi says like this, and this is an observation that I don't know why, but this is, I believe, the reality. And that is, a guy tells me, Rabbi, I'm so sorry I couldn't make the shir. My car broke down, and I couldn't make it. And in Taka, his car broke down, and he couldn't make it. I'm willing to bet 50-50 he ain't making it the next week. Why? I don't know why. The reality is, even if a person doesn't learn, even when they have a good excuse, the next time they're not going to learn even when they don't have that excuse. I don't know why that is. It's just something I see. I couldn't learn. My wife was feeling I had to stay home. So what do you want from the guy? Sometimes we want someone once. You need to come even though you can't. Because it's going to be harder to come next time when you can. I don't know why that is. But that's what I see. That's what I see. So they miss it. I don't know about you. That's what I see.
You don't see people who have a legitimate excuse and they show up the next week and the week after and the week after?
Yeah, but very often, the legitimate excuse
becomes an illegitimate excuse?
No, it doesn't become.
I go my car,
No, you
get
have
a
a
flat.
legitimate excuse, you don't come, you don't feel so bad you didn't come. So then
maybe it's because that person, in order to do a mitzvah, they have to have a zchus, that be zoicha to do the mitzvah. So maybe part of the zchus is you have to really want it enough. One of the reasons that Mordechai was held accountable for saving Klal Yisrael, but he had to do it. Klal Yisrael's life was on the line. So one of the Farshim say, yeah, but if he would have valued Torah more, Hashem wouldn't have put him in the situation where he wasn't able to learn. So sometimes a person says, oh, what do you want? I'm excused. Yeah, but why did Hashem give you an excuse? Okay, so let's see if anybody says this. Now, Abarbanel, and this is based on the Yushalmi. There's a statement in Yushalmi that people quote, Im ta'azveni yoim, yoimayim ezveka. Does it say that anywhere? I don't think so. I don't think so. The Yushalmi says, Amar Rav Shimon Lakish, b'megillas chasidim matzoy ksiv, in the book of the righteous, it says like this: Yoim ta'azveni, you leave me for a day. Yamayim ezveka, I'll leave you for 2 days. Says the Abarbanel. L'chein Amar Rav Meir mevar ich yiyazeh ba'amrei im batalta min ha'torah yesh lecha b'telam harbe k'negdecha. Roit Soloimer. She'im yizbatel min ha'torah b'rtzoinai mibnei tzarchei atzakav. If a person is mevatel from Torah at will because of his needs, al habitul ahu al derech ha'onesh yimsei rois rabbis v'tzoros v'tuam rabbim. Listen to this. That sometimes a person misses for a legitimate reason, or what he deems legitimate, it could bring on things that prevent him. In other words, a person says, you know what, today I'm going to go do that. Says the Abarbanel, it could bring on extenuating circumstances. In other words, sometimes things happen in life that unfortunately a person is not able to. Why do they happen? Sometimes we could instigate it. The Rebbe Shem says, look, if it's not really that important to you, so then maybe I'm not gonna give you the opportunity. Ki hamikrim lo yukfu, ch'may she'amru megillas hachasidim yoim ta'azin yamayim ezveka. In other words, a person has to be very cautious what they consider legitimate, because there's so many things in life that could sort of interfere with the person's schedule. If a person makes learning a very big priority, then Hashem will make it that, you know what, you won't have to miss for this, you won't have to miss for that. Like Chazal say, that Yirmiyah would be mochiach, the people of the generation, they didn't want to be involved in Torah. And they would respond, what do you want? We got to make a living. And Yirmiyah would show them the man. Look what Hashem provided them with the man. Meaning, even when they were in the desert, Hashem was able to provide them. In other words, like this. Sometimes in life, you got to stick yourself out a little bit. I need it. Says Abarbanel, sometimes take the chance. You think you need it? Rebbe Shalom has other ways of making sure you get what you think you need. But if a person sort of says, look, I need it, says Abarbanel, there's so many things in life that could hold a person back. If you look at number 11, the Arvei Nachal says like this. What's the reason? What's the logic? What's this mechanism of Im Tazveni Yoimaim Ezveka? Look, I know about myself. The moment you sort of relax a little bit, the moment the Torah says you go away from me a foot, I go away 2 feet. You go away a day, I go away 2. Why is that? It's all a matter of appetite. And in order to keep the appetite going for the Torah, you need to learn. The more you learn, the stronger the appetite. The less you learn, the less the appetite. So once a person says, you know what, not right now, not today, maybe a different time, your appetite dulls, and you don't want it as much the next time. You don't want it as much the next time. He says, your desire weakens. And once the desire weakens, it causes greater bittul Torah. But when a person sort of, people ask, I'm not interested in learning. I don't feel like learning. No kidding. You know why? Because you're not. So you don't have an appetite for it. Just, what should a person do if he doesn't want to learn? He should learn, and then he'll want to learn. The more you learn, the more you want it. The more you want it, the more you learn. Take a step back. It's a very unusual relationship. The Torah is like a wife. It's a complex relationship. It's not, the more you give, the more you invest, the better it is. The less you invest, you're gonna get it rather quickly, right? In Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Ma'oi Rasha Kilas Yaakov. It's an arusa, and it's also a nesua, and this is the concept in Amalta Batar. But a person is involved as much as possible. Yesh lo Sachar Harbe Litein Lach. Rebbe Shalom will reward a person greatly. Good Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.